All right, so welcome back, guys. We're venturing deeper and deeper into season three, and um, we're on kind of the day of rest here of the week, and I'm super happy to have Alex Nicol come in from his mother's home in Ottawa, and we're going to talk a little bit about his journey and kind of what's coming down the pipe, his inspiration and stuff like that. So, Alex, thanks so much for hopping on here and chatting with us today.
Great to be here. Thank you for the chance.
Yeah. Oh, I always love having Canadians on. I actually have another Canadian group coming on soon as well. So as much Canadian content as I can. Um, I've been kind of doing a deep dive into what you're all about, and I kind of wanted to start with you, Alex, is like where did your beginning inspirations come from around being involved in singer songwriting and being involved in the music scene? Like, what are your early recollections of those kinds of feelings that you had?
Well, the story begins when I was 3. Now, my mom, who's German, she was born in Germany, would bring us back to her family, to the town where she grew up, every once in a while. And this one trip when I was 3, I came to discover a German singing artist named Heintje, who I just absolutely adored. There are stories of me impersonating Heintje, strutting around, pretending to sing the songs he would sing. He was a bit of a crooner, um,
Right.
and I think he was actually very much a crooner. And so, even at the age of 3, this vision of a man in a well-dressed outfit or just appearing on stage singing appealed to me greatly. And then, as I got older, I got into music through my dad, who made it clear that if there was one thing his kids would do, it would be piano. And so by the age of 6 or 7, I was taking piano classes with a pretty strict teacher in my neighborhood. And that was a bit of a mixed bag. I have to say my early years in music were a little bit more strict than they are now.
Right.
But then the story jumps to when I was 11, when I joined an Anglican boys choir here in Ottawa, which is where I spent my teenage years.
Right.
And that was an introduction into a totally different world of music than I'd ever experienced before. I came to appreciate harmony. I came to appreciate the grand spectacle of the voice in a large room. Obviously, church music is of the kind that we were singing was quite
Hmm.
dynamic, quite harmonically rich, and the camaraderie also of being in a group. All of that had a big impression on me. And then I found the acoustic guitar, and I found a Neil Young book. This is now we're fast forwarding to when I'm probably 16. I found a
Right.
Neil Young book of covers, Decade. This was his
Right.
compilation record,
Hmm.
and oh, I fell in love with that. I was
Yeah.
playing that every night. Acoustic guitar, Neil Young
Such a
book.
beautiful record. Ageless.
Oh,
It's like the kind of music that never gets old.
it
Um,
truly
I know
is.
my grandkids will listen to that stuff. It's just like
Yeah,
amazing. That's
that
really
connected
cool.
with me in the deepest way I think I've ever
Right.
connected to music. And
Wow.
like you said, it's timeless. There's a purity to his voice. There's a naivete to some of his lyrics. I am a child, I'll last a while. You can't conceive of the something in my smile. Beautiful, simple songs. And
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
how it all began for me. I went from there to starting to write my own songs.
Mm.
I just felt a connection to getting an emotional or a story of like from my mind down on the page and then into
Right.
musical form with the guitar.
Right.
It all felt so right. And
Do you remember, Alex, the first song that you penned that was like, hey, you know, I, I kind of like this. I like the way I sound and the way I played. Do you remember those, like that first maybe early song that you dabbled with?
yes, I was actually I was probably 17. and I wrote a song called New Girl on the Block. And I was totally scared because I knew I had to show everybody. And I
Right.
remember I was actually up here on this third floor, the attic, and I was like, "Oh my God, I just new girl on the block. You know, you just gotta meet her. The new girl." It was a bit of like a Paul McCartney jangle, and
Right.
I was really into it, but I was also very excited and nervous to share. I remember walking down from the third floor with my guitar. My hand was kind of shaking. And I was like, Dad, family, I have to show you a song.
Yeah.
And I sang it. And so that would be it. It's
Yeah.
not been recorded, but
Right.
it's in my mind. I could probably recall it if I wanted to.
Right.
Um,
And was your had you kind of zeroed in maybe on on the style that you would evolve into? Or was it quite different from the material you ended up putting on tape?
well, yeah. So in that respect, um, yeah, I'd had other musical experiences too. Like I actually went to Canterbury High School playing the saxophone. So I was really, that was the focus instrument. I was really all over the place.
Hmm.
And I think the acoustic guitar and the voice came naturally to me. But
Right.
I had such a curious mind. And I mean, to be honest, singer-songwriting wasn't in at the time. I remember
Hmm.
that was the time of the Strokes, the Arctic Monkeys, Franz
Right.
Ferdinand. And I wound up sort of moving through the acoustic stuff and wanting to be in a louder band.
Hmm.
I became captivated by the Libertines, for example, a British
Yeah.
band, as you might know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that swept me. I got swept up in that, and I moved to Montreal and I began playing in bands. I had my own trio group. We were a bit more of a garage rock kind of band.
Yeah.
And I did that for a long time. It was really only, you know, the past 5 or so years that I've returned to my roots,
Right.
uh, my sort of genuine, like arguably more authentic, more
Right.
immediate, acoustic based songwriting. So that's a long way
Absolutely.
of saying
Absolutely.
no. I didn't know what I was doing, and I kept doing a bunch of stuff. And yeah, I matured through all those different phases.
Right.
The
Right.
Montreal scene was very much about community DIY activism and bands,
Yeah.
uh, and I got very into that for years.
And Alex, I read that you it was 18, right? That you decided to make that journey to Montreal around like it was in your teenage years still. Um,
Yep.
what was so attractive about Montreal and the scene that and did you have contacts or was it just like I'm hopping on the bus, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna see what happens? Like what was your mindset behind that move to Montreal?
No, it was very swiftly decided and very um, excitedly done. I had no
Hmm.
connections. I I had visited the city only once with the intention of trying to figure out whether I actually want to live here. I took the bus on Canada Day
Okay.
um, of once of the summer when I was 18, and I moved to Montreal in the fall of that year. Um, and I moved with my friend who we were hoping to make a band. I lived in the plateau for years and just made my way from there. It was very much like throwing caution to the wind.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Did you become you said you had a three piece, but you also collaborated with a ton of people as well, right? Like there you had played, maybe it wasn't your band, your creation, but you were a musician that came to play with some of these bands. I was trying to find there was this post-punk group that you had mentioned in one of your interviews, but it never gave the name. Do you remember some of those that kind of like grungier, like post kind of punky stuff that you were doing, like some of the bands that
Yep. The first band I was in was called Kirby Tash. And then the Kirby Tash became Hone, and
Mhm.
uh, Kirby Tash put out an album and an EP and a single, I think. Hone put out an EP. And in those years, I was playing with Whitney Kay. I was playing in a band with Tess Roby. I was playing around a bit more than that, but
Mm,
yeah. Um,
that's great.
yeah, Kirby Tash opened for Aught a couple times.
Yep.
We were pretty active in the scene. We went to Sled Island a couple times.
Nice.
Um, but yeah,
Nice.
that was the
That's really cool.
yeah.
So that kind of the, coming back your cycle of starting off very um scaled back and then kind of evolving into this more noise, and then full circle back around to these couple records and single that you've put out under your name. um how did that come about? Like, how did you find that sound that you wanted? um yeah, how did that kind of happen, that
Well,
process?
in all those years that I was making band-based music, more electrified music, I would
Yep.
always have an acoustic around the house, and I stayed connected to it. And uh, sometimes I would be singing at home, and it always felt really natural to do that.
Hmm.
And I think it dawned on me that there was something I was missing really from the music I was making. It felt like I was pushing up against something all the time. It felt like I was trying to make something work that wasn't really landing. Um, and then, there's always been there's a tradition of singing together in my family and in our friend circle, uh, folk songs, country songs, uh, bluegrass songs. So in all those years that I was doing the heavier stuff, I was still taking part in those occasions when we'd all sing together. And
Yep.
actually, one year we started a little thing called Barnfest up at our cottage, and I was the cover band guy. So I remember I was tasked with, well, I wanted to do it. I I put together a band and we learned 10, 15 covers, folk rock classics. I remember learning all the lyrics to American Pie
Oh,
by
geez. Oh.
yeah, which was it was a challenge.
That's, yeah,
There are a few more words in that than Sweet Caroline, in case
right.
anyone hasn't heard those two songs. Um,
Epic lyrical songs, that's for sure.
yeah, so that brought me back into the world of the folk rock music
Okay.
I used to love, and I remember also singing Leonard Cohen songs. I know that my grandma loved Leonard Cohen, and my
Mm,
grandma's love of the singer-songwriter tradition actually is probably what got me into it in the first place, and
amazing.
is probably why I love it so much. You know, she showed me a real appreciation for it. She loved Gordon Lightfoot, Three Chord
Oh,
Gourd. She loved
yeah. Yeah.
Elvis, and she loved, a wide range of artists, but
Mm,
because of that, because of all those experiences coming together, I kind of returned to I granted myself the opportunity to do the thing that felt right to me,
mm.
and that's what that and
It's a
doing
big move,
music.
I'd say,
It's
right? Like,
yeah,
deciding that, okay, it's going to be me. I'm going to be up there. I'm going to stand in front. I'll have my guitar, and there's no room for maneuvering. Right there, you
totally,
are.
totally.
It's a brave move. It's a brave move.
Well, thank you for seeing it that way. I think in hindsight, I see it that way too, because when I think about being in those louder bands and the more sort of the music of my youth, you know,
Hmm.
I could do that and sort of hide away and be like, well, mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, you don't have to, of course you wouldn't like this music because it's not your kind of music. And I could
Right.
sort of hide away in that.
Mm,
But by returning to the acoustic singer-songwriter stuff, it was, yeah,
mhm.
like you say, it was a brave move. It was a full unveiling of who I am. And um, I,
Absolutely.
I'm very happy that I had the courage to do it because it's led to
Great.
some of the best music I've ever made by far and the most inner
Absolutely.
growth. I can definitely speak to that.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
I think you mentioned one time, forget what interview it was, but you talked about emotional intelligence and how you would gain more of that by actually being more of who you were, and
Yeah.
expressing that through your lyrics. Now, one of my questions too is, I mean, your lyrics are, I mean, they're really wonderful, but they're raw and they expose you as a musician. How do you manage that? Of you're laying your heart out for people and saying, here, I mean, this is it. Um, how do you deal with that kind of vulnerability?
Uh, I deal with it by um, mustering up the courage to let it out.
Mm,
And I know the difference between writing vague lyrics about something unclear and writing from the heart. And it's
right?
way harder to write from the heart at first, but once you get started in it, you know it's the only way.
Mm,
So, um, yeah, I would say it's I deal with it in the way that I don't even know how to put it. I just know that in spite of what other people might say, putting myself in that raw space is my job.
hmm
That's my
right.
job.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
well said, though, Alex. I like that. That's, I mean, you're seeing it as this is what I'm doing. This is my life, and I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm going to face it,
exactly. And
which is really
and
powerful.
I and exactly. Well, thank you. And I write in that way in part because I know that other people will bring their own experiences to it. My
Right.
life, my own opinions about my life are subjective, and I know that. Um, and sometimes being brutally honest is really hard, but I
Hmm.
do believe that in the long run, it's always better to be brutally honest than to
Absolutely.
pretend everything's fine all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a big
Your
part
first,
of Been a Long Year. That was a big part of
yeah.
Been a Long Year, which maybe we can get
Yeah.
to later. But
Yeah, for sure. Well, I wanted to just touch on And I Wonder, that first single that you put out. Was that the first song that you'd written as yourself? Like, because that was your first single, right? Came out
yeah,
2020, like just kind of right in the clashes of the pandemic.
yeah, that was one of the first songs I wrote intentionally, thinking I want to make an acoustic singer-songwritery based album.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And what was the response when you showed that, when got your family, your friends performing it? Like, what was people's reaction to it when you first released it?
Well, I think people were pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
because I think
Nice.
it came from a place that was genuine and it came from a place that I hadn't really explored before. That I
Right.
think uh, that I think felt right for me, and
Hmm.
yeah, I think it went over quite well in spite of the challenges.
Right.
Um,
And
yeah,
then it propelled you to keep going, I imagine, right? Because then that single appeared on your first record,
yeah,
All for Nada,
yeah.
which is a beautiful record as well. And I love your inspiration, your wife
Oh, thank you.
inspiring you. And I read too that you guys really have a partnership in this where she helps you do a tremendous amount of stuff with your music as well.
Yes, yes. We are married and we also work together in music. She's my manager. Um, and it really like the story of that record is that she encouraged me to make a solo record, and I said no for a while. And after long enough time, it dawned on me that I really should. And so it felt appropriate to honor that because it's the truth.
That's amazing. So you had a record that just came out December of 2023, two volumes to it. So been a long year, volume one and two. How did Let's talk a little bit about that record. How did it come to be? Like the cover art for it's spectacular. I mean, the simplicity, the light you have in there of you just standing in the window, it's like right away you get people's heart. I find when I see that before I listen to a note of it. What was your inspiration? How the album come to be?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. With the Been a Long Year song cycle, there was quite a lot going on in my life. I I've always been quite an anxious person,
Mhm.
and I was kind of aware of the blockages I was putting up, of the excuses I was putting up, of all the things I was avoiding in my emotional life, even in my ambitions in the world, my connectedness to
Mhm.
the world. I I was always aware that there was a screen in between me and the world that I was putting up, but I never really knew how to do anything about it. And
Mhm.
then I went through a period of like tremendous loss, quite a consecutive series of sudden losses
Mhm.
in my personal life, which shook me to the core, really. And um, I quickly realized that I'd been running away from my feelings for a long time, and that I really had nowhere else to turn but to let my inner life uh, come out
Mhm.
um, a bit more. And I was reckoning with the fact that the world had was telling me, that I hadn't put my all into who I am. I hadn't really uh, grasped my full identity, really.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so in dealing with the grief and in dealing with this sort of turbulent period of change, I wrote a lot of songs.
Right.
And those make up the record.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Were those during the pandemic, Alex? Those songs, were they written during that time or around that time? Because the album came out in 2023, right? So were you
Yeah,
working on those songs kind of on the exit tail of?
um, the pandemic was a side factor. It wasn't. It was already quite deep into the pandemic.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, it was very much like the way I see it is that as the world was sort of dealing with sudden loss, I was in a very personal way, and yeah,
Amazing.
and that led to
Well, I mean, it's a
song.
really beautiful record. Like I love to throw this question out to artists when they reflect on their record. Like, how would you what would be two sentences that you'd use to describe your latest record, Been a Long Year, Volume One and Two? Like how if you had to write a thesis statement about it, what would that sound like or be?
In 2 words.
Go for it.
Oh,
Or two sentences.
2 sentences. Sorry, excuse me. Um, yeah, it's a very personal record uh, that um, narrates a person's recent experiences through honest lyrics, uh, raw vocal delivery, and lush, calming arrangements.
Amazing. That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
Amazing.
how did I
Yeah,
do?
I'm gonna go listen to it after we talk here again because I'm gonna think about what you just said as I listen again. But it is, I feel the personal touch in it. Like you said before, you put that music out there and people are gonna take it and do different things with it, have different feelings. I mean, that's the beauty of amazing singer-songwriters. Um, Maybe just to wrap up here, Alex, tell us a little bit what's coming down 2024. What can we look for
Oh
with
yeah,
Alex Nicol?
yeah. So I've got some new music um, coming down the pipeline.
Nice.
Um, I'm thinking of maybe doing an acoustic version of a song that has been out for a bit that um, people have really connected to.
Hmm.
So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, I'm looking at maybe doing some summer shows, festivals possibly. And just in the past month, living through the Christmas season, I've been inspired. I want to do a Christmas song. So
Nice.
I'm just gonna drop that here, maybe as like a
Cool.
manifest.
We
Do you have?
got 11 months to anticipate, or 10
Yeah,
months too.
yeah.
Awesome.
It's
Love
a
it.
long promotional cycle that starts before the
Yeah.
song's even been recorded. It's great. If you have any song recommendations, Christmas songs to inspire me, let me know. Or if your listeners do, please let me
Cool.
know. And
Amazing.
yeah, other than that, I just got back from recording a new record actually. So
Okay.
yeah, I
Do you think your new music will drop in 24 or is it going to be more 25?
I can't say more than just
Great.
where I'm at with it, but I can
Yep.
say that I had quite a magical, mystical experience going down to North Carolina and
Mm,
working with some of my absolute heroes, and it's and legends in my eyes. So like
mm.
I can only share my enthusiasm for what's already been
Love
done,
it. Love it.
and
The
definitely.
anticipation is building, though, Alex. You're just piling this anticipation on, which I love. I mean, I really want to thank you for spending a bit of time with me. Your stories are really informed and genuine. So thank you so much for taking some time and be sure, guys, to listen. We're going to put a track of Alex's at the end of this podcast. And I just wish you all the best in 2024. I'll be watching, seeing what happens, how it evolves. And hopefully one day I'll get to sit in front row and watch you play.
Absolutely. I look forward to that. And thank you for the chance to have a conversation. I've been working on my text on the mountain in the cold breeze, frozen rivers, stray branches, and me running freely anytime you want. You can come alive. The attentive heart makes the world a mysterious place. Does the cold mean nothing to you? Does it turn you into stone? Do the seasons have a reason? And why does everything fall apart? Anytime you want, you can come alive. The attentive heart makes the world a mysterious place. Anytime you want, you can come alive. The attentive heart makes the world a mysterious place. And in the cold breeze on the mountain, with my heartbeat picking up speed, something's right about this moment. I just need a little more sun. Anytime you want, you can come alive. The The attentive heart makes the world a mysterious place. Anytime you want, you can come alive. The attentive heart